I think it's safe to say the base MacBook Pro has been one of Apple's biggest hits in recent years, especially since the M1 version defined what a base model laptop could be back in 2020. Every update since has delivered more and more power per dollar, and last year's base M4 version set a new bar with a minimum of 16 gigs of unified memory and pro chip level performance for under $2,000. Well, this year with the new base MacBook Pro with M5 here, we once again get some sizable, meaningful improvements. They're a bit more subtle this time, but altogether they might just be enough to make you upgrade. And in this video, I'm giving you 5 solid reasons why you should consider grabbing one of these fantastic value 14-inch laptops. The first reason to consider buying a new MacBook Pro with M5 is because of its internal storage being up to twice as fast now. This means the data or files you're reading or writing, in other words, opening, copying, or creating files, happens up to twice as fast once again. So big projects stored internally are going to open more quickly, along with some heavier apps as well. And again, working with files feels more instantaneous. Searching your entire drive with Spotlight and Finder should be a bit quicker. macOS updates will occur a bit faster, and of course, more intensive tasks can benefit since they rely on storage that is as fast as possible. And last up, the remaining or free storage you have can be used as something called virtual memory swap. Although we now have 16 gigs of unified memory, or RAM minimum once again standard since the launch of M4, your Mac will still make use of available storage as a sort of extension of that memory. To clarify, this isn't a new feature, and if you don't get my technical drift here, think of unified memory or RAM like the desk or table you work at. When you're working on something in a physical sense, you want to surround yourself with all the papers or items, tools, resources, etc. that you need on hand to complete tasks. So you'll fit as much as you can on that available table or desktop space right in front of you, so you don't have to constantly get up and go to a drawer or closet or cabinet, so to speak, to grab other things you may need. But you only have so much surface area to work with, and sometimes you need just a bit more of it to most efficiently complete your task at hand. Think of memory swap like a little shelf or box on the floor you put next to your desk or table where you're working, where you can quickly lean down and grab whatever else you may need to continue working. It's a little slower than just grabbing something right in front of you, but at least you don't have to completely get up and out of your seat to grab what you need. To make a long story short, this long-winded explanation is a metaphor for the past few years of memory swap with last-gen storage speeds. I think with this new faster storage, the metaphorical box on the table has been upgraded to a little side table or shelf that's almost as tall as your desk, so instead of leaning down, you can just slightly stretch your arm out to grab what you need, which is really fantastic. All of this to say, not getting 24 or 32 gigs of RAM is even less of a big deal thanks to this faster storage, which is actually our second reason to consider buying one of these laptops, since you can now configure more of it if you so choose. For the first time ever, a base MacBook Pro can now be equipped with up to 4 terabytes of this faster internal storage, and under $3,000 too, which is a huge win for people who don't need pro chip performance but want a lot of storage. This allows you to have a really seamless, dongle-less portable laptop experience without the need for an external drive if your work or project files can fit within this pretty sizable 4 terabyte capacity. For years, I managed to work off of an internal 4 terabyte drive on a MacBook Pro for all my content creation needs with tons of high-res media and project files, so I think many of you could work with 4 terabytes no problem as well. So again, if you're on the go a lot and don't want to be constantly plugging into external storage, you can now put an additional $1,000 into this instead of a processor or more memory that you might not use. I think long-term, more people regret not getting more storage than foregoing more power with processor or RAM that may not even be used once again. Plus, with more free storage, you now have more memory swap available again, which will just further boost your overall performance and experience. And speaking of content creation, if you're like me and use your iPhone to record videos you edit, especially ones where you're talking on camera, I found a super affordable wireless mic that instantly makes your phone footage sound even more professional. It's called the Lark A1 from a company called Hollyland, and it delivers incredible mic sound quality or recording quality in a small, simple, and easy to use package. Compared to the quality of my phone's built-in mic, the quality is just night and day. It records in 48 kilohertz, 24-bit high fidelity, so every word comes through clean and crisp. And if you're filming outside, the 3-level smart noise cancellation gives you control over how much background sound you filter out, so your voice always stays natural and clear, whether you're indoors, on the street, or even in a windy park.
The battery performance is outstanding too. With the charging case, you get up to 54 hours of use, so you can record confidently all day and beyond without worrying about power.
And if you like to move around while filming, the 200-meter wireless range ensures your audio stays strong and reliable even at a distance.
So whether you're starting your content journey or just want an easy upgrade to Pro Sound, the Hollyland Lark A1 makes it simple. Check it out using the link below and hear for yourself how much better your videos can sound.
Getting back to the video here though, and again with content creation and more specifically memory in mind, our third reason to consider buying one of these Macs has to do with actual memory or unified memory or RAM you get here. It's now even faster this generation, operating at 153 gigabits per second, up from 120 with last year's M4 models. This extra bandwidth will make intensive workflows or tasks even quicker, since again the function of memory or RAM is to give your processor quick access to files or resources without having to dig through the rest of your storage, which is now faster like I said, but not quite RAM or memory level quick. And if you compare this 153 memory bandwidth to the 100 you get with M3 and M2, and the now meager 68.25 gigabits per second you get with M1, you're obviously getting so much more memory bandwidth to work with here, which is again important for heavier pro tasks. But RAM or memory only gets you so far, which is why you're likely curious how the M5 chip makes a difference, which itself is our fourth reason to consider grabbing one of these new MacBook Pro models. Obviously. Well, compared to last year's M4 model, we see some pretty decent gains CPU-wise, up about 18% or nearly 1.2x, which is nothing to sneeze at. However, just like with iPad Pro with the M5 chip, it's important to compare CPU performance in context because quite obviously, pretty much no one except Apple crazy snobby tech YouTubers like me upgrade year over year. So put simply, MacBook Pro with M5 is over 1.5 times faster than MacBook Pro with M3, almost 1.8 times faster than MacBook Pro with M2, and nearly a staggering 2.1 times faster than the OG MacBook Pro with M1 CPU-wise again. So if you're coming from one of these older models on top of the faster memory, you're in for a real performance boost treat in the CPU department. But where we see even more impressive shorter term gains is with GPU performance. M5's GPU is a whopping 30 to 33% more powerful compared to M4's. But looking at GPU performance more in context, or again compared to older models which you are more likely to have, MacBook Pro with M5 is roughly 1.6 times more graphically capable compared to MacBook Pro with M3 and M2, and nearly 2.3 times better compared to MacBook Pro with M1. With all of this in mind, this uptick in GPU performance, even from the last generation, is huge for tasks involving the rendering of any kind of advanced visuals, whether that's a more graphically intensive game, a 3D model, or perhaps effects in Final Cut Pro or other photo and video editing applications. GPU horsepower is also great for on-device AI models and processes, whether you're literally working with a local model or just AI features in certain applications. So yeah, that 30 to 33% improvement is going to make a big difference if AI is involved in your workflow, which is becoming more and more the case as time goes on. And again, factoring in the faster memory and internal storage, this stacked performance really comes together to give you a very well-oiled, lightning-quick machine, even though it's still a base, non-Pro or Max chip model. And that finally brings me to my final point, or fifth reason to grab one of these new models. It's kind of obvious, but very important. Put simply, the M5 model, of course, brings everything that's been incredible about the 14-inch base M3 and M4 MacBook Pros, particularly last year's M4 model, which I raved a lot about since it's such an incredible value. You, of course, get the more updated MacBook Pro design with more I/O, like the SD card reader, MagSafe, and HDMI, and although we're expecting some kind of more substantial redesign or overall refresh next year, the chassis here is still pretty timeless, industrial, and looks great in space black as well, a color variant the base model got just last year, as it was an exclusive to the pricier Pro chip models the year before. You also get an extra USB-C port like last year's base M4 model as well. Seems kind of redundant or dumb to mention, I know, but this is super important for people who are connecting to external displays, dongles, peripherals, drives, etc. All this to say, when you have a semi-pro to pro workflow, you need all the I/O or connectivity you can get. You also, again, get 16 gigabytes of unified memory at a minimum, which was a big deal last year since this was finally made standard with the M4 chip. In years past, 8 gigabytes of memory was standard with these base models, and it really didn't cut it by the time M3 rolled out. At the moment, 16 gigabytes is just enough, maybe even a bit more than enough, especially when paired with the faster internal storage this year, which, as I've mentioned about 20 times already, can be used as virtual memory swap. You can also choose the nano-texture display option, which I wholeheartedly recommend. I will not be using another MacBook Pro or iMac without it ever again, since it makes such a night and day quality of life difference, effectively eliminating annoying glares and reflections which just get in the way when I'm trying to work on editing photos, videos, etc. And finally, you still get that incredible 24-hour battery life with this substantially more powerful chip inside. It still outperforms the 14-inch MacBook Pro with M4 Pro, which affords you 2 fewer hours of video playback or screen on time, and is on par with the massive, thick 16-inch MacBook Pro with M4 Pro's identical 24-hour battery life figure, which comes thanks to its clunkier, heavier chassis, insane 100 watt-hour battery, and non-max chip, unfortunately. Anyway, all 5 of these nuanced reasons considered, if you're not super keen on waiting out for a more substantial refresh next year, and you just want something that performs really well and gets you the best bang for your buck, I have absolutely no problem highly recommending this 14-inch MacBook Pro with M5 model. Starting at $1599, you are getting an absolute powerhouse here and are potentially reallocating money that would otherwise be spent on performance you may not necessarily need, instead on more tangible upgrades like more storage and that nano-texture coating. And the good news is the already fantastic M4 model is now going to get even cheaper. So if you're not in need of that GPU boost and extra storage, a last gen model is really a no-brainer here if you can find one for a decent price. And that about wraps up this video. I hope it was helpful. Big thanks to Hollyland for sponsoring the video here. Check out my link to the Lark A1 mic down below once again, and expect more content about iPad, Mac, iPhone, and more coming from me soon. And as always, I'm Noah, and I will catch you all in the next one.